Welcome back into the Blacksburg Buzz, and the Hokies are headed back to a bowl game. 37-17 win over UVA in the final regular season game of the season. Two 5-6 teams showed up to play, and Virginia Tech came out on top, hits that 6 wins, and now they're eligible to go play in a bowl game. So, a big accomplishment for Tech. Obviously, you wish that this season went a little bit better for the Hokies. You wanted to get a couple more wins out of it, maybe like minimum 8 or so. The schedule ended up being a lot harder than anticipated ahead of the season. You had some teams just perform way better than expected. I mean, especially like Vanderbilt. You talk about a team that surpassed expectations. They had quite the year. You beat number 1 Alabama, you beat Virginia Tech to start the season. Just impressive stuff from a lot of different teams on the Hokies schedule, overachieving their expected performance this year, and Tech underachieving. So a tough year overall, but you hit that 6 wins, you get a couple extra weeks of practice, you get to play one more game, and send some of the seniors off well, and getting that extra practice could be big for a lot of the younger guys on the team who might have an opportunity to play a little bit more in a bowl game. Now, before we get more into today's video, let's talk about our video sponsor, BetOnline. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football to the NBA, college basketball, NHL, and UFC. Head to BetOnline today and don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. So, a very interesting rivalry week for a lot of teams. And before we talk about the game, I want to talk about some pregame festivities. The Hokies getting into a little bit of a scrum with UVA. That was kind of a pattern all weekend. A bunch of teams fighting before or after their rivalry games. And the ACC actually decided this week that they're going to fine a lot of those teams. Virginia Tech and UVA received fines, and so did several other ACC schools as well. I'm not sure about the other conferences at this point, but definitely I think it was 4 in the ACC got fines for some fighting. And honestly, I'm not a big fan of that decision. I don't think it was quite that serious based on the video I saw. Definitely, some pushing, maybe a couple punches in there, but it seemed to get broken up fairly quickly. Didn't really look like anyone got seriously hurt. So, you don't want guys to fight, and I don't support the fighting part, but I think that the ACC maybe should have just let that get dealt with internally. I don't know if I agree with the fines part, just based on the severity of the fight. And from what I could see, this could be wrong, but it didn't seem like there was really anyone that got hurt out of it. So I think that should have maybe been an internal decision. And with all the fights after the game, if you don't want a flag planted on your logo, go win the game. I mean, it's a rivalry game. You're not supposed to like each other. That's what makes college football awesome. The shenanigans, loving our team so much, the fanatics of the fans, and you know that's what makes it great because we fight our rivals so hard. We love our teams. We battle out there on the field. That's what makes college football what it is. When you ban stuff, when you punish that fun shenanigans, it takes away from the heart and spirit of it all, in my opinion. And, when it happens to you, yeah, it feels disrespectful. So don't let it happen. Hire security to guard the logo or simply just go win the game. And then it's not a problem. So I really think that, planting the flag, I don't see a big deal about that. You know, the fight. I think it was blown a little bit out of proportion. All in all, go win the game, and then there's really no way you're going to get disrespected like that. So that's kind of how I see it. But back to this UVA Virginia Tech game. Pop Watson starting with Drones and Schlee both injured. I believe they said Schlee was a game time decision. I don't really think that was true because, he clearly wasn't going to be playing. Drones, obviously not dressed out either. He had a leg brace on. And Musket taking over for Calandria, that was pretty big too. So, two guys who weren't starting early this season and taking over in this 5-6 game for bowl eligibility. Pretty big deal in this one. Musket, he had a lot of trouble against the Tech defense. Pop Watson was really getting it done again and just consistent across the board. The Hokies with 10 points in the first 3 quarters and then 7 in the fourth. Just flat out dominant. Pop Watson looked great again, just like he did last week. He throws a good ball. He looks confident. He has a good pocket presence. You can't ask for much more out of a young quarterback. He's a lot different from, what we had with Drones earlier this season and last season. Pop, he's a little bit smaller. For lack of a better term, he's a more quarterbacky quarterback. He, sticks in the pocket a little bit more. He throws the ball a little bit better. He moves around the pocket a little bit better. Whereas Drones, that big physical dude, runs really well, but not quite the same passer. Scrambles really well, but, he's not. He doesn't move in the pocket quite as well. So personally, I think that's a change that was needed just purely based on the performance lately. It doesn't seem like Drones has been 100% for most of this season, and it seems like that's been affecting his play, which has obviously hurt the Hokies when your starting quarterback, who played basically all the snaps since before Syracuse, really. With your starting guy a little bit banged up, not playing at 100%, it's going to hurt the team. So I'm kind of interested to see what happens with this quarterback room next year. Who comes back? Who is getting the starting job? I really don't know. I don't know if Drones is going to try and come back or whether the team wants him back, paying him a lot of money and, going back to it. Didn't perform as well as he did last season, but at the same time, when your guy's not 100%, it's hard to ask him to perform at 100%. So where does that sit? What's the price tag to bring him back next season? At what point does he walk? At what point does the team say, I don't know if that's worth it? I'm curious to see how those negotiations end up. We probably won't get to see a lot of it behind the scenes, but just you can kind of figure it out after the fact when you see the results of what happens. So with all that, very interested to see what happens. And then if he does end up returning, what happens with that starting role? Does Drones get it outright? Does Pop get it outright? Is there a battle here? I think at the very least, I want to see a battle for that spot. I think Pop should have a chance, not necessarily give it to him outright. He's only played a couple of games, and UVA's defense isn't very impressive. To be honest, he looked great, but it's not a great team that he played. It's hard to know how he'll play against some of those better teams, but he did look good out there, and I think he should have at least a shot. I want to see that quarterback battle, see who wins it out, just because you give Drones a couple of months to heal up to get back to 100%, and surely that'll help his performance some. And then you give Pop a couple more months to develop, to work on things, to get comfortable. And I'm curious to see who can win that out. Pop did a lot of really good things. I mentioned how he was moving in the pocket well. He's comfortable sitting in there, just moving about and adjusting with the line. and throwing a really good ball, making good reads. His deep ball was pretty decent. He could improve on those throws. There was one that he really underthrew, but he gave his guy a chance, which is big. A lot of the deep balls this season, Drones has been overthrowing and just not anything that anyone could really get to and put a good hand on. So yeah, Pop underthrew. That could have been dangerous depending on the defense, but he made the play. And, you got to excuse some stuff if you make the play, from my belief, from my perspective, because, if you make the play, you make the play, kind of washes everything away. So, very curious to see how that might go next year, who comes back, if Pop even comes back, which is another thing I haven't even mentioned. Who knows what his price tag might be? Does he come back next season? Does he want to transfer out? I don't know, but I'd like to have him back. With how he performed the last 2 weeks, I'm pretty confident in him. Tons of stuff to work on, but he's a young quarterback. He's got plenty of eligibility left, and I'm curious to see how things turn out. After this game, though, you have got to love dominating UVA. Going back to it, yeah, 6-6 season. A lot of changes need to be made before next season, but this is the way I see it. You got to enjoy the moment. It's a rivalry game. Get into it, have a good time, enjoy the win, and then after you enjoy the win, you can go back and make your arguments for what needs to happen, the changes that need or don't need to be made. I still think you got to change up a couple of things on the staff, look for a little bit more success. I think this team is a lot more talented than what they put out on the field. I think they struggled with adjustments a lot. That's a thing most people have seen. That third quarter has just been a death sentence for the Hokies most of the season. Coming out flat out of the half, giving up a lot of points, not really doing much on offense. And, week after week, that was the pattern. Didn't really seem like anything changed. I'm sure to some extent there was adjustments, but they weren't working. And so I do want to see some changes, but at this point, you got to enjoy what we've got, enjoy the win, look forward to the bowl game, and then after that, that's when changes can happen. You don't want to do anything at this point. I don't really see any reason in swapping things up before the bowl game. Let everyone practice, see who's even going to play and who might opt out and enter the portal. This game doesn't really tip the scales for me with that win. I think you need to get like at least two more and, make some better adjustments. But at the end of the day, you grab some talent out of the portal. You do make a couple of those changes. And at this point, just enjoy the win. Rivalries, they're not about the record of the team. It's simply about beating the team that you can't stand. And the Hokies did that this past weekend. Enjoy it for what it is. After you're done enjoying it, then you can push for those changes to be made from my perspective. Also, a fun senior night for a lot of guys, losing a ton. Jennings, Jenkins, Felton, Stephen Gosnell, Peebles, Dorian Strong, APR, Fuga, Lane, Tootin, and a bunch of other guys on this team. Had a lot of fun watching them play. Several really, really great careers at VT. And some really impactful additions for a year or two in there as well. One more game of the season to watch them play. But if they opt out, it's been a pleasure. It's been a good time. Thank you for coming to Virginia Tech and playing your heart out there. You talk about one of the best defensive linemen in Hokies history, APR, the best running back in several years, who had a fantastic 2-year stretch and definitely up there with the best of the best. A dominant corner who's been one of the best in the ACC for a good portion of his career. A lot of great moments with these guys and just wishing them the best in the future, whatever that might entail. It seems like the general consensus is that Virginia Tech might end up in the Gasparilla or the Fenway Bowl, but we'll know on December 8th, this upcoming Sunday, where everyone gets placed, who Virginia Tech's going to be playing in the bowl game, and what's going to happen. It's going to be really interesting. I love this time of year because I want to see, who's it going to be? You never know where, and you never know who, really. And I think that's a lot of the fun of it. You kind of get to anticipate that. Hopefully, you get to play a different team you haven't played all year in a stadium you don't get to go to often. I loved going up to the Military Bowl, heading up there, not too far from home for me. I was able to, make it up to the Pinstripe Bowl a couple years ago. Not a great bowl game for the Hokies performance. Definitely one that I'd like to have back, but the trip itself was pretty fun. Going to a baseball stadium, not my favorite for a bowl game. I think it's kind of weird. I think the seats are kind of weird, but it was an experience I enjoyed for the one time. I thought it was pretty cool and unique, although it is something that happens pretty frequently, but definitely a little bit on the different side, although not exactly my favorite. I definitely like to be somewhere a little bit warmer, try and get out of the cold, but it's certainly not up to me, and just interested to see what happens. So we'll know on December 8th, but all in all, Virginia Tech, you take down the rival, you get that bowl eligibility. Not the greatest season, but it could be a lot worse. Just enjoy what you had and enjoy all these great seniors that we got to see play. Losing a ton of guys, a ton of great careers, a ton of really great transfer additions and portal guys. A lot of good stuff from this team, and hopefully there's a lot more good stuff on the horizon for all these guys and for the Hokies next season.